President Trump's personal attorney is in federal court. That just days after the FBI raided Michael Cohen's office, home, and hotel. Today, his mystery third client is revealed. Believe it or not, it's this guy, Fox News' Sean Hannity. Then, Trump versus Comey, the former FBI director, unloading on the president during a primetime interview last night. The president, not surprisingly, fighting back and tweeting up a storm. We've got the clips, the tweets, and the fallout. Also, it is corruption season, allegedly. Shelley Silver back in court for jury selection in his retrial today, and Ed Mangano's trial continues on Long Island as the former Nassau County executive fights federal charges. We're following both gavel to gavel. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. We would like to welcome our viewers in Philadelphia who are watching us on WMCN. Thank you for your time. We begin this evening in the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. That's where Michael Cohen made an appearance this afternoon, and it certainly was action-packed. Our own Dominic Carter doing double duty tonight live in Lower Manhattan with more on that. Not a boring day, Dom.
Richard, certainly wasn't a boring day. Let me just show you something, Richard. We're going to pan off to the entrance of this courthouse. Literally, Richard, as we speak right now, you talk about not being a boring day. That entrance, we're waiting for the former Speaker of the Assembly, Sheldon Silver, to come out tonight. Today is jury deliberations in the Silver trial, but it's still going on. And jury selection, not jury duty, jury selection going on. And we're waiting for Mr. Silver to come out. But in the courthouse right up the block there, it turned out to be a bad day for the president. She was the main attraction and completely swarmed by media from around the world at the court hearing into what to do with records and electronic devices that the FBI seized last week in raids on President Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen.
For years, Mr. Cohen has acted like he is above the law. He has considered himself and openly referred to himself as Mr. Trump's fixer. He is played by a different set of rules, or should we say no rules at all. He has never thought that the little man, or especially women, and even more women like me, mattered. That ends now.
At the end of the day, federal judge Kimber Wood denied a request by the president and Cohen for a temporary restraining order to keep federal prosecutors from reading the seized documents. Does your client, the Stormy Daniels, does she have a message for the president and perhaps for the First Lady?
Not at this point in time, no.
The April 9th raid sought information on a variety of matters, including a $130,000 payment made to Daniels, who alleges she had an affair with Trump in 2006. Inside the courtroom, it was quite odd at times. Lawyers for the federal government accused Cohen and even their boss, President Trump, of directly sensationalizing the case. The judge ordered lawyers for Cohen to name his unknown client, and they stated in open court TV personality Sean Hannity. Hannity responded by tweeting the following, quote, "Michael Cohen has never represented me in any matter. I never retained him, received an invoice, or paid legal fees. I have occasionally had brief discussions with him about legal questions about which I wanted his input and perspective." Hannity goes on to say, "I assume those conversations were confidential, but to be absolutely clear, they never involved any matter between me and a third party." Near the courthouse, we also ran into one of New York's former governors. Here for Stormy Daniels, President Trump. What do you make of all this, Governor Smith?
I will let the courts sort all that through. The only thing I can tell you is that I do agree with Jim Comey that Donald Trump is a stain on the presidency. He has degraded it, and it is a shame.
Well, Richard, let me also say to you that in terms of the dramatics of what happened today, Attorney Cohen and Stormy Daniels, they never made eye contact with each other in the courtroom. It was interesting, Richard, to see this all play out because initially there was not enough seating in the courtroom for Ms. Daniels nor her attorney, who we spoke to after court today. But apparently Judge Wood decided to clear up a couple of seats so that Stormy Daniels, at the center of this case, could actually be in the courtroom. So plenty of drama today, Richard, in terms of what happened here. I've never seen so much media in my life around one person, and this day is still not over because at the second federal courthouse, we are awaiting again a former Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver. They're doing jury selection, and we're waiting for Mr. Silver to come out tonight. So a full day, Richard, here in Lower Manhattan. Reporting live from the federal courthouse, I'm Dominic Carter. Richard, let's go back to you in the studio.
Absolutely. We'll be checking back in with you in a little bit regarding that Silver trial, Dom. Great job. Thank you. And for more on the latest bombshells, which happened today at the federal courthouse, let's bring in Renato Mariotti. He is a former federal prosecutor who's now a partner at Thompson Coburn. First of all, Renato, thank you for the time. And you cannot, as they say, make this stuff up. I really want to talk to you about a piece you penned last week about why Trump is panicking and the raids on his attorney Cohen's files here extremely dangerous for the president. To that end, we have today's developments on the heels of a bizarre scene on Friday. Talk about the significance about what we heard today with client number 3 now, Sean Hannity, and how this all unfolded in the courtroom.
So Michael Cohen made a court filing this morning in which he said that he had 3 clients. Donald Trump, a man who's a fundraiser for the Republican National Committee, and an unnamed third client. And he said that this client did not want his name revealed. He also indicated that this client's documents were responsive to the search warrant request. That client was revealed by Cohen's attorney in court to the judge today as Sean Hannity, the Fox News host. Well, what does this mean? Well, what it means is that the documents, the communications between Sean Hannity and Michael Cohen were part of what the government was seeking.
I want to do this in 3 categories, from an exposure aspect, also some of the idiocy in terms of how this has been handled, both by counsel and also certainly in the ramping up of the dialogue against the investigation, and also the process. But first, let's talk about the exposure here. The president, he called this, among other things, last week, a witch hunt, attorney-client privilege is dead. Explain to our audience, as a former federal prosecutor, just the difficulty and the hoops they had to go through to raid an attorney's office, certainly an attorney with the president as a client. Talk about the thresholds that had to be checked off here before that ever would have happened.
So for a typical search warrant, you already have some hoops you have to jump through. Here, there's a much higher bar because the search was of an attorney's office. First of all, the prosecutor needs to get approval from the lead federal prosecutor in that area, which is somebody appointed by the president, typically. Secondly, you have to consult with career professionals in the criminal division of the Justice Department in Washington, D.C., and get them to sign off on it. And third, you have to go through a number of different steps where you come up with, for example, procedures to deal with privileged documents. You come up with you make sure that your search warrant is narrowly written so that it doesn't request more than is necessary, and so on.
And what we know and what we believe to be already seized and admissible here should concern certainly Mr. Cohen, but also his most notable client. It's believed here, it's been reported that this centers around here bank fraud, wire fraud, and campaign finance violations. Again, speaking Mr. Cohen, and we also believe that the communication between Cohen and Donald Trump will be both admissible and has already been seized by the feds right now. We're talking seriousness for Mr. Cohen and potentially, and if you could explain, Renato, to our audience, where the line starts between what would be privilege, what would be admissible, and how what's called a taint team is really going to figure out where that line starts and stops.
The conversation has to be for the purposes of obtaining legal advice. So if you go to an attorney's office, you seek advice, that's privileged. If an attorney happens to be your friend or your business partner, you own a hot dog stand together, all of that doesn't transform all of your conversations into privileged conversations. So that's the first thing that's important to note. And even if you have a privileged conversation, you can't use the attorney-client privilege to further an ongoing crime. So you can't use it to hide your crime or to further your crime.
In terms of the president's request or his team that he doesn't trust the quote-unquote taint team here to make that distinction, and they want to get basically the first look at it and make their own determinations what should or shouldn't be allowed, I get at least the sense today, Renato, that's not going to fly.
So in a typical criminal case, the feds come, they search your home if they got a search warrant, and that's it. They take the stuff and they do what they're going to do with it. Here, it's not even the guy whose home and whose office was searched that's making that argument. Here you got a third person who's saying, hey, this isn't my home, this isn't my office, but I want to look at everything that the Fed sees pursuant to a search warrant, take out what I don't think they should have, and hold it myself and not turn it over to them. There's no legal basis for that.
Now to the ineptitude part. On Friday, we were covering and showing the scenes outside of Manhattan Hotel where you had basically Cohen and some of his cigar buddies not appearing in court, I should sense in Cohen, apparently tweaking the judge who was looking for answers that Cohen's attorney couldn't provide, and he was standing outside. Now, this I can't make up. Michael Avenatti, the attorney for the film star or porn star Stormy Daniels, he said the following over this weekend to Jake Tapper.
Michael Cohen was videotaped and photographed sitting with a number of men on the Upper East Side, I believe it was, and we believe that a number of those actually have ties, Russian ties, as crazy as that sounds. So this story just gets more strange and more strange by the day. You couldn't even make this up if you wanted to.
An understatement, but whether that's true or not, it really speaks to me, Renato, that it's like Cohen believes that because he got a law degree, that absolves other actions he may have done, even if he was acting kind of as a businessman or cutting a check or whatever else. The naivete or ineptitude, whatever word you want to use here, is really stunning, especially because he's got the president as a client.
Typically, when people are under federal criminal investigation, they are very concerned. They're talking to their lawyers. They're not out in public, displaying themselves. They are very careful about how they act. And whoever Michael Cohen was with, the fact that he was out in public smoking cigars while the judge was hearing this legal proceeding, I think it was certainly an unwise move.
So to bring it back full circle here to the very title of the piece that you wrote, Why Trump is Panicking, I got to think the real worry for him is, even if he wanted to make a move on Rosenstein or Mueller or whoever else, day by day, the actions that he and those he's surrounding himself with just add to a look of either, if not conspiracy, that they're trying to hide something. It's going to be harder and harder for folks on the Hill to defend any of those actions if, in fact, there's another Saturday Night Massacre.
Well, I will tell you, I am not an expert on what Republican congressmen think and what motivates them. So nothing would surprise me in terms of their loyalty or not to Donald Trump. But what I will say is that, at this point, you have legal jeopardy for Donald Trump that is getting very close to him. I mean, here you have the man who was supposedly acting as his lawyer under criminal investigation regarding matters that the president was talking to him about. That is about as close to the president as you can get. If I represented Donald Trump, I would be alarmed. He appears to be alarmed. He appears to be disturbed. He's clearly upset about this, as well he should be. And it'll be interesting to see how the Congress, which of course is controlled by Republicans, reacts to any of this.
Renato, great job. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
As they say, you can't make it up. All right, coming up next, everybody. Now, the Trump-Comey feud, well, it reached a whole new level yesterday. Comey calling the president, among other things, a liar and unfit for office. Trump saying Comey a slime ball and dumb. We've got the gory details straight ahead.